Good morning, everybody. Welcome to this MLK edition. Everything's an MLK edition today of the NFL Review Show. Excited to be talking about the Saturday, Sunday mistakes, the things we got right, the things we got wrong. I'm Eric Lindquist, excited to be talking it alongside my buddy here, Adam Scherer, who's coming off of, he smashes every sport now. He's now in the golf streets dominating, which sucks for me. Adam Scherer at Ship My Money DFS. How you doing, my dude?
Doing pretty well. Football was absolutely awful for me this week, so it was nice to get it back in PGA. But yeah, fun day yesterday, non-NFL wise.
Fun day, non-NFL wise. If you don't know what we're talking about, go look at that $15 in DK for golf. Third place, really, really nice finish. Always fun to know that, that first one, though, was a little ways ahead. This is not as bad as, the second place NFL afternoon where you get bypassed and it's like there are 50 million things that had to go right for you to get past in that scenario.
Yeah, this one kind of felt like found money because I knew a lot of guys that I needed to do poorly were doing really well. So I kind of just written it off. I wasn't even sweating it. And then at the end of the night, I think Ben Raza DM'd me and was like, "Are you sweating this?" And I was like, "No, should I be?" And so then I looked and was like, "Oh, cool, I'm in third." But yeah, it was, whereas like getting second in NFL by 0.3 of a point just kind of pisses you off.
Yes, it does. But, we're here to talk some NFL. Just congratulations to Adam. Playing DFS is a lot of game theory, a lot of other things where we learn how to play DFS in multiple sports, and playing lots of slates, having more exposure and doing the right things over a long period of time is going to come to fruition. Adam has shown that time and time again. He's very modest about it too. So, I mean, that's really what you love to see, is how modest Adam Scherer is.
Yeah, I mean, humility is just at the top of the list of things that are important to me.
All right, let's smash that like button, subscribe button, notification bell here for humble Adam, because he needs it. He needs it for his self-esteem and confidence that he doesn't have. So you said NFL sucked this weekend. It was not enjoyable for me either. There were some things that I definitely felt like I got right. There were some things that I definitely know that I got wrong. But overall, can you summarize a couple of your plays that there were kind of make or break spots that just didn't go your way?
Darrell Williams. I think we can start there.
I want to just drop kick myself. So we're going to go to the Saturday slate here in a second. So just kind of, you talk about Darrell Williams, and there's nothing populated for the Sunday games here on lineup study. Obviously it's the day after, it's a holiday. So I'm assuming maybe they just didn't upload anything. Again, totally understandable there, but Darrell Williams, I'm looking at the main DraftKings Sunday 3-gamer. And then the Saturday one, we'll go back and that one's available here in lineup study. But starting with the Sunday one, because we're coming fresh off of it here. Winning lineup, Girl Pal 2015 on DraftKings, $200 left over. And the thing you needed on Sunday was Jerick McKinnon and Gio Bernard at 4,100 and 4K, which allowed you to play Samuel, Evans, Kelsey, Gronk, all the most expensive pass catchers on the entire slate. Jammed all of those together, and getting off of Darrell Williams. I had an eternal amount of Darrell Williams, which sucks because I also had an eternal amount of Gio Bernard. And I chose to kind of take the injury consideration in one spot, and I chose not to accept it in another, which is just really frustrating. But talk to me a little bit about Darrell Williams yesterday.
Yeah, I didn't even really consider doing anything else. He had practiced. I thought he was just good to go. Felt really safe, really cheap. It was a spot where, like, obviously he was going to be extremely popular, but I was willing to pretty much just jam him in. I think I had 90%, somewhere around there. And then, yeah, I mean, basically I just stopped watching that game as soon as the first drive happened and I saw what was going on. Yes. But yeah, I mean, I like the strategy in this lineup. Like, Gio Bernard was somebody I talked about a lot on the strategy show yesterday. I didn't end up playing him. I just played a lot of Vaughn, but I thought that it was very realistic. Like I didn't think he would necessarily get as much work in a massive easy win for Tampa Bay as he did. But if the game was competitive or if Tampa somehow was playing from behind, I thought Bernard was going to play a lot more than people were expecting. So like that one made a lot of sense to me when it worked out. Like I was talking to you on Twitter, I was pretty frustrated with myself that I hadn't done anything to make sure I got to him. McKinnon really just didn't cross my mind, but it's a spot where he was really cheap, and it's you can get negative correlation there, which is nice. Like when you're thinking about how to win these massive field tournaments, you can only do so much with wide receivers because like you can play Pringle instead of Hill, but he's still 10% owned and all that. But with running backs, it's like if McKinnon has a big game, you can pretty safely assume Darrell Williams isn't. So strategy wise, I think it made sense.
So on Thursday, I do a show with Aton, and we were kind of talking through the slate, and he thought, what is the key to this slate? And I said, I think that there are going to be a lot of random second, third tier running backs that go nuts. And it was one of those spots where I was specifically thinking of Keyshawn Vaughn being sensitive in the event that Ronald Jones was ruled out. Leonard Fournette, we didn't get ruled out until Friday. I don't even think that was necessarily on my radar, but was thinking about guys like him, rostering him, and then Jerick McKinnon. It's just weird that guy, especially being a Minnesota Viking fan, I've seen many times where he's gotten limited work and was still able to put up a serviceable fantasy score. You can say that a lot about a lot of different pass catching backs who can kind of on DraftKings find some kind of a ceiling. And it's almost a double dip because it's what a 4,100 and a 4K Jerick McKinnon, Gio Bernard get for the rest of your lineup. You completely get away from those 55% running backs there in Darrell Williams, in Joe Mixon, in Josh Jacobs from the Saturday slates, those type of plays that are just such condensed chalk. And you get access to the best pass catchers. You get access to the most secure target shares there. And it wasn't even a perfect lineup. You had Eagles defense showing up at 2,500. I think that was maybe the worst performing defense on the entire slate. I know the Bucs put up 9, the Steelers put up 9. You had a number of these different defenses that are kind of throughout everything, but because of that 2 running back tandem at 3.5 and 5.9%, you didn't have to be perfect with anything else.
Yeah, exactly. It kind of it's powerful in a couple of ways because, like you said, it gives you access to Debo and Evans and Gronk and Kelsey and pretty much whatever you want. But then also you don't have to worry about the ownership elsewhere so much either because if McKinnon and Bernard have big games, that you're pretty much just not competing with that many other teams that have both of those guys. So, obviously not something I did. If you look at the top 10 there, I don't think I recognize a single name. So it's something that I don't think, obviously we don't have the data, but I don't think a lot of like 150 max guys did it. But it is something where, we talk about how you're sort of you're at a disadvantage if you're playing these large field tournaments and not playing 150 lineups. This is the kind of thing that I think is actually more appealing if you are playing limited lineups. Like you should be more willing to take a stand on something like Jerick McKinnon than you are if you're playing 150 lineups. I think like there was no real reason. Maybe I should have had more than 0, but there was no real reason for me to like just have my entire night depend on Jerick McKinnon when, I can make a lot of really good lineups that are different in a variety of ways. If you're only taking one shot at it, you should be more willing, I think, to do something like that.
I think that's a great point. And I think a lot of people that are watching the show, either, a couple days from now, a couple weeks from now, I don't know what you guys do or when you watch these, but I know for a fact that you got to be willing to, in one lineup, just say, all right, well, goodbye, $20, move on with your day. Like that's definitely a great way of thinking about it. And you only need, if you're playing the one lineup and it doesn't cash, you lost $20. That feels a lot better than, when you're putting together a portfolio of lineups, max entering a $20. I mean, what is that? $3,000 that you're looking at entering for 150 lineups for it, depending on what it means to you, depending on like what that is to your bankroll, what it is to you as a person. Like there needs to be opportunities for you to say, yes, I can do this or I can't. And Jerick McKinnon would feel like an unnecessary kind of it would feel like it would thin out your pool a little bit, adding him in and trying to get like 5-6% of him. I understand if you did, but then you're basically going against the guy that you're going to have in a majority of your lineups in some of these spots. I totally get that. I get that way of thinking. Gronkowski, Kelsey, you just had a feeling that double tight end was going to be extremely viable on that slate. It looked like that was pretty much the most popular tandem amongst some of these top 10 lineups. Second had that tandem. I believe sixth place had the tandem. You're looking at a lot of Kelsey and Gronkowski, and Gronk getting in the end zone was a definite benefit to anybody who went that direction. But did you do anything yesterday, kind of specifically knowing how many two tight ends there were going to be, where you tried to get more wide receiver, more running back? Did that even cross your mind?
I didn't do anything specifically there. I know my tight end exposures were a little bit different than the field. I think I had like 35% Gronk, and I want to say like 20 something percent Kelsey.
Okay.
But I played and like 25% Goddard. But I know I played like almost 60% Kittle, which was just one of a variety of things that went wrong. But yes, I mean, I did play a lot of tight ends. I just kind of, I think, played a little bit more of ones that were a little bit less owned.
You almost need like San Francisco to go down early in some of these games. Like Kittle is so dependent on game script, I feel like.
Yeah, and I had a lot of Jimmy G. I had a lot of Brandon Ayuk. Like that was the spot where I took a stand was on San Francisco's passing.
Oh, me too. Yeah. Don't you worry.
I actually so I forgot. I'd forgotten to check my Yahoo results until right now. Max entered the $20 for $3K. Got back $120. Oh,
good.
To clarify. Yeah.
Yay. Good job, Adam. Woo. Yeah. Very proud. Jordan Klein behind the virtual glass, also just standing Yahoo. And the best part is that overlaid.
Yep. I was actually talking to a friend the other day. Like, I don't know the last week that I profited in NFL on Yahoo, even though in theory that's where I should be profiting. And then I had a really good year on DraftKings where it's actually hard.
It's the most difficult of, I would say, the three main sites you would be playing on for DFS purposes. Of course, our sponsor PrizePicks, they're not concerned about our DFS exposure. They're concerned about being able to play some of the props that you're able to do over there. States where you don't necessarily have the legalized sports betting, you can still play some PrizePicks, get some exposure that direction. So I'm excited to talk about them a little bit later with you guys, but that's kind of really all we've got to touch on for the Sunday slate, because, we obviously don't have a lot of the data to be able to go through and to really kind of point out anything specific. Byron Pringle was a must-have piece there. I knew immediately after the first possession for the San Francisco 49ers that I had made massive Jimmy Garoppolo mistakes and that all of my Gio Bernard exposure was going to be dust. Well, it certainly was. 100% Patrick Mahomes on this slate was always the answer. I think I tweeted that out literally the beginning of that Dallas and San Francisco game when 23% Patrick Mahomes on a 3-game slate. I feel like maybe that was just a mistake by me, a mistake by the field, but such is life. Anything else you want to discuss from Sunday?
Nope. Want to forget it ever happened.
Me too. Let's jump on over here to Saturday. So we have all of the things that we need over there. Also, should I just say Super Wild? Everybody needs to use Super Wild. That's a good idea, right, Jordan Klein? Super Wild. People should download that. It's a word that makes no sense, but I absolutely love it because, Super Wild. That was what we just got done with. And I believe that goes until tonight. So you got to use it. You got to get that $1 of NFL Express Weekly with promo code Super Wild. Get all of these showdown and single game contests that we have, player projections, ownership projections, top plays tool. That thing comes in handy. That is worth $1 alone. That's worth $100 alone, I would say, depending on what volume you're playing. But Super Wild at checkout, that expires tonight. So definitely utilize that. Check it out. But Eric wears a 3-finger ring with one of the gold rope stand. It told me if I pass, I get a sheepskin coat. I'll move a few packs to get the hat. No, that'd be dope. It's okay. Benny Levine, you got me going now. I'm ready to rock. But yes, he's Super Wild, and don't rap like me because I suck. All right, NFL. Adam doesn't know what to do with himself. He's not even.
I couldn't hear you. It was really weird. You got like really quiet. Either you got quiet or I like temporarily went deaf. But like I could hear that you were talking, but I just couldn't hear anything you were saying.
Toss and turn in my sleep at night. That's all I got. It's just cool. Told Dre from the gate I carry the heat for you. First mixtape solo got inherited to be for you. You didn't know I was a rapper, did you? I'm terrible.
I just found out you were an actor the other day.
Yeah, I was going to say, that was fun times. We can rehash that one another day on another show. That's for damn sure. We are, 16 minutes into this puppy? Smash that like button, y'all. Let's get going. All right, NFL lineup study from Saturday. we are looking at the Millie Maker because that's what a lot of people want to talk about, and a number of one lineups. That same kind of deal where if you can inherit some risk in your one lineup builds, 3 of the top 5 are single darts in this contest. We have CB Davidson, and we'll go through some of the individual plays here. We can kind of rehash some stuff from Sunday, but probably not because we never want to think about it again. Maybe play Patrick Mahomes. That's what I learned. But CB Davison, absolute smash here in their lineup. Let me find exactly what I'm clicking on here. But yes, CB Davidson, no doubt about it. What an absolute goat here. Josh Allen, Devin Singletary, Josh Jacobs, Jamar Chase, Kendrick Bourne, the must-have value piece along with Zay Jones, Dawson Knox, Tyler Boyd, and Bengals defense. Now, right out of the gate, you had 4 quarterback options, and it was, well, do you play more Joe Burrow? Do you play more Josh Allen? And Josh Allen ended up 24%. That's less than a fourth there. Most people went the Joe Burrow route. What do you think about Josh Allen, considering, his rushing upside, number of paths to get there? Did you have more interest in Joe Burrow on this slate or Josh Allen?
I don't know. It looks like I had more Allen. I had not. So for anybody watching, my exposures kind of should be taken with a grain of salt here. I had an issue in Excel and basically just ended up playing 150 random lineups that I had made instead of what I probably would have played. But I did have more Allen. I think I expected to have more Allen. One kind of like overarching trend, because we saw it on the Sunday slate too. Maybe we should just be playing the best quarterbacks more on these short slates, because it seems like, not a knock on Joe Burrow, obviously the ceiling was really high, but just the 24% ownership coming into Josh Allen, it kind of just seems like, and like I did it yesterday, I played a lot of Dak, I played less Mahomes. If you're going to just kind of get flat ownership on these guys, maybe you should just be playing the guy that is the best.
What a concept.
Yeah.
My God, I'm just so mad about this entire weekend, because that's kind of really the theme that I have too, where I did have more Allen, but like not substantially more. I didn't take some kind of an aggressive approach with the best quarterback here. I liked his spot against New England. We literally saw him on the road shred them up. Now he's going back. Oh, it's cold. Oh, the horror. A guy who lives in Buffalo, who plays football every day in Buffalo, is going to be cold. Oh, crap. Like, what a stupid deal that was. I just can't even. But like, legitimately looking at a lot of these lineups, I mean, it's just, you played Josh Allen or you didn't, because the guy went for a 40 spot. We can play Monday armchair quarterback, literally Monday, but at the same time, legitimately, he's the best quarterback on the slate. Joe Burrow, he needs to get there through the air, and it's a playoff game. Maybe Joe Mixon more. Just a lot of things that, you don't even need Josh Allen to necessarily put up the 40 spot like he did. Just, I think he's going to outperform Burrow more of the time. And if you're going to get different already, you're probably going to be leaving salary on the table or having a different roster construction, and that's going to matter a little bit more in terms of how you get different. Would you agree with that? That's the thing that I think I've been thinking about the most, is maybe it's the Bernard and the aspect of these 5-6% plays, but it's just like, there's such standard builds for what you would do if you were playing like a 100-field tournament, but in a 200,000 entry tournament, that 1 or 2 pieces of differentiation, like finding those and being able to be overweight to them, feels like the key if you're making 150.
Yeah, I mean, I think that makes sense. And I think it can be kind of hard, kind of difficult to do. Like, I know there's definitely times where when I talk through a slate on a show, it's like, oh, I really like this idea. And then when I go through my lineup building process, it just doesn't get there. And that's probably like I do different things to try and get to some of those guys. And that is probably a reason they're low owned, if like I see that I want them and I still just don't get to them. But yeah, it's kind of, even thinking back to like 4 and 5 game slates that I had success on during the regular season, like on afternoon or early slates, a lot of times it was just not even necessarily somebody that I realized was going to be 4 or 5% owned, but just somebody that is still a legitimate option. I don't think either of us are advocating for like trying to get some like number 5 receiver that is going to play 2 snaps and hope he scores. But like in the situation, yesterday where you knew Bernard was going to be on the field, it was just a question of how much, and everybody thought they knew the answer when really nobody had any idea. McKinnon, obviously everybody was wrong there too. But spots like that, I think, where one side of basically of 2 or 3 options is going to be low owned. And the reason is that the field has sort of just come to a consensus on playing time when they're likely to be right, but there's a lot of volatility there. I think attacking those spots harder is a really good idea on these smaller slates.
Yeah, it's definitely, and you've had a lot of success on these 2-3 gamer afternoon slates throughout the entire season. And I mean, I can't tell you how many times we've reviewed, top 3 finishes for you in that contest. So, there's definitely, I'm definitely going to factor in more of your opinion on some of these plays, because you've proven that there's a process to kind of get to the top of it. And just something that I've been thinking about a lot here over this weekend, where we're going to have short slates. We only have short slates coming up for NFL the rest of the season. So we have to be able to inherit some of the risk, or you have to kind of tell yourself, all right, maybe I'm just going to pump down on volume. Like it's really one of the two. There's really not a third option for me in this regard. So I need to start finding some of these stands and being a little bit more over the top on them. But again, Jared McKinnon was just never going to show up in any of my lineups there, so long as Darrell Williams was active.
And I mean, it depends on the slate too, like how crazy you need to get. Like I know it wasn't a 2 or a 3 gamer, but last Sunday's late slate where I did well, it was just as simple as like the Cardinals were playing the Seahawks, and everybody was going to the Cardinals side of the game, and you could just get Russell Wilson on, I think it was like a 4 or 5 game slate at 8%. Obviously, you're not going to get a Russell Wilson type guy at 8% on a 3 gamer, but that idea, like there's still just going to be some slates where you can get a good quarterback at 15% or something, 16%, because another quarterback really stands out. Like, for example, I have no idea what the NFL schedule looks like next weekend, but let's say you have a slate where Patrick Mahomes is on it and, very clearly the top option. There's the potential for the second best option to still be a good quarterback and just not get that much ownership. So like you don't necessarily have to be digging into the, backup running backs and that type of thing, but different slates kind of set up for different strategies.
Yeah, and I mean, Darrell Williams could be set for success right off the bat next week. If he practices in full, maybe he ends up, obviously it's going to be something where people talk about McKinnon now and talk about him being a part of this Kansas City offense. And I don't know what those tags are going to look like here as well. I mean, we're obviously very focused on our NBA here today, but looking at NFL stuff for next week, there are going to be a lot of pieces of the puzzle that need to be put together right off the bat. That game, Buffalo Bills, Kansas City Chiefs. I don't know if there's a playoff game I've been more excited for in a long, long time than that one.
Yeah. So that's kind of like the perfect example of what I was just talking about. Like if obviously no idea what it's going to look like, but let's say that Mahomes is getting, twice the ownership of Josh Allen, just jamming in like every Bill stack you can, and with every trying to get to the McKenzies and any random piece from the Bills that could catch a touchdown, but just getting to the lower owned side there is going to be a really good strategy. Whereas yesterday you kind of didn't necessarily have any one quarterback going overlooked, so going taking shots on the Bernard McKinnon type guys I think made a little bit more sense.
All right, we've got a question. Rory O'Connor, not sure how NFL Rewind is important, but okay, I ain't going anywhere. I'm sticking around for NBA. That's great. Super happy that you're sticking around for NBA. But if you play NFL, if you play any of these massive contests, being able to jump into lineup rewind, having the opportunity to see what was a mistake, what was fluky, what was something where you felt like you got exposure to a player that was just underowned compared to their chances for success. That's literally what our NBA boom bust tool does, our NFL boom bust tool. And again, playing DFS in any sport, there are so many concepts that carry over. So Adam, for anybody watching this show here, why do you think that NFL Rewind is important?
I mean, I think there's just kind of different ways you can approach it too. Like you can just answer a lot of questions that you have. And like, honestly, I probably don't spend enough time going through rewind type stuff. I kind of just keep making mistakes until I figure out on my own. But
those are costly.
Yeah, but like it can be as simple as, like if I played someone that did horribly, for example, Darrell Williams, you can just go back in and see, pick 3 or 4 guys that you think are good and see what they did. If I played heavy exposure to somebody and he did horribly, and I look and Alex had a lot of him and Steve had a lot of him, I feel better about it, that I didn't screw up. If I play someone that did horribly and I play a lot of him and I look and a bunch of guys that I respect just didn't play the guy, then I'm going to be, okay, well, I probably did something I shouldn't have there, and, figure out kind of where I went wrong. So, I think it's most helpful because it's really, really difficult in DFS sometimes to know if you're playing poorly or just, going through a bad streak, because it happens. Like, tournaments are really top heavy. They're difficult to win. I think it can be really easy. It's probably the best way to go back in and kind of just say, like, okay, am I completely just off the board, like doing dumb shit, or is it just not working out right now?
Yeah, and I will say, this kind of leads me into what I want to talk about, and that's Kendrick Bourne. The best value piece that you had on that slate, 28.1 fantasy points. He had the second best fantasy performance out of any player at any position on Saturday. Coming into this game, you had Wilkerson end up getting active 60% and 58% of offensive snaps here the last 2 weeks. So not some massive allotment there. Nelson Aguilar was back in the mix, but 11.4% ownership. You were trying to find different pivots in that same range. It's a 2-game slate where if somebody catches a touchdown, they're probably going to end up optimal. He's at least on the field for over 50% of the time. So, you could do worse, but in a come from behind fashion, New England, I feel like there was not a single pass catcher that anybody here at Awesemo or anybody who played 150 was overweight to whatsoever. Like, nobody got close to getting over the field on 11.4% ownership. Brinpack had 11.3%. So he's the closest out of anybody with 150 that really I was looking at. What did you think about Kendrick Bourne? And how do you kind of consider when you know that one team, and New England was that team this week, is going to come in super low owned? Is there ever a time that you just try to find an overweight approach on one of those receivers?
Yeah, I mean, I think that makes a lot of sense. And especially in this game, it made some sense just because it positively correlated with Buffalo. So, I mean, you don't have to go like Mac Jones plus Bourne. You can go Allen plus whoever on the Bills, and run it back with Bourne. So it's not like you have to go completely to like an inferior New England stack. So yeah, I mean, I think he made sense. I had 12%. Again, that doesn't necessarily mean that's what I intended, but it seems like a lot of people just basically were around the field. And I think it made sense. He kind of just fit into lineups. It's not like he was an obvious value. 4,500 is cheap, but it's not like he was 3K or something. Just fit into lineups where you were playing the Bills, mostly, I think.
Yeah, agreed. And having Josh Allen, the clear run back that you absolutely needed to have to win a tournament. Anytime somebody's going to be 11 or double-digit percent owned, even on a 2-3 gamer, you better have them in your lineup when they do something as nuclear as that. Joe Mixon was obviously a disappointment at 11.6 fantasy points. That sunk 3/4 of the field before the tournament even began, really. So if you made the pivot directly to Josh Jacobs, you were in a much, much better spot. Devin Singletary went smash, just like everybody on Buffalo did, outperformed the game's team total by themselves. That seems pretty good. They had the perfect game. They threw the absolute gem there with no punts, no anything. I think that was pretty well explained. I think it's just Buffalo went completely nuts, and he needed to have them, and he needed to avoid the landmines. The landmines being Joe Mixon, Darren Waller, and so on and so forth. Just the most popular plays on the slate here. I don't know if there's really a lesson to be taken out of that, considering they were all fantastic plays, but I guess just being sensitive that Joe Mixon 74%, anytime somebody's going to be 74% on a 2-game slate, things can go wrong in the NFL.
Yeah, for sure. That can be applied to Waller as well. On these shorter slates, like obviously you just get a lot higher ownership on everybody. I didn't think Mixon or Waller were like even bad plays at that ownership. I thought they deserved it, but it's still whenever ownership gets that high, it gets to the point where you can consider just, even if they are correctly owned, you can kind of start to consider just going somewhere else and hoping, because that you're only competing with 25% of the field if they fail. So it becomes a little bit different than, when someone's like 25%. It's like, okay, even if I don't play them, I still have to beat 75% of the field that also didn't play them. Once the numbers start, pushing 80%, it starts to be kind of appealing, at least, to just go somewhere else.
So let's do this. Click on Stacks, Jordan Klein. Click on where it says Stacks in the top left portion here, because something I had talked about leading into wildcard weekend when we did the lineup review from last year's wildcard weekend and into this year's. One thing that we saw was quarterback, 2 wide receivers, and a run back had like almost 9-10% of the field exposure. I am shocked at how flat everything is in terms of lineup build. Like there was no true clear-cut way that people built their lineups with, like the 2 and a run back and then having it be condensed in different directions. Now it's a 2-game slate, so you're looking at more combinations to get different or to have things kind of scatter around in a certain way. You're not as particular to it, but I do find it very fascinating that there was no clear-cut build opportunity, no way that I guess quarterback with 2 wide receivers makes the most sense on a 2-game slate. Just because if that quarterback goes off compared to the other 3 quarterbacks on the slate, you're probably taking 2 pass catchers with you most of the time, and going to have a better chance at kind of finding those spike performances. I am just shocked, though, at how flat all of the different builds are you as well.
I think a lot of it can be explained by Joe Mixon, because when you and I had looked at it for the previous for last year, one of the big gaps was that people weren't pairing running backs with quarterbacks, but because Joe Mixon was just like clearly the top running back people were going to get to, and then people were still going to Burrow, Chase, whatever, I think it closed that gap just because people weren't going to just avoid Mixon because they were playing Burrow. So you just kind of naturally got people doing that, even if they like their strategy coming in probably wasn't, people are not going to play running backs with quarterbacks enough, so I'm going to do that. It was probably just, I want to play Joe Burrow, I want to play Chase, and I want to play Mixon.
All right. That's just, a fascinating anecdote I wanted to throw in because, again, we're reviewing lineups, and that's a portion of it. I don't think there were that many considerations. I don't think I made any considerations to the stack type, but on a 3-gamer, I think it probably could have been a little bit more pronounced. We can't look at that here right now, but, I think it can be assumed that quarterback, 2 wide receiver, and run back seems to be kind of the most prevalent way that people are putting together these lineups on 3-gamers, but 2-gamers going forward, probably having less thoughts about exactly what that stack's going to look like with that running back being plugged into the grouping. But just wanted to talk about it there. And also I want to talk about our sponsor, PrizePicks. We've got just over 20 minutes left here of the NFL review show before we take you guys over to NBA Live Before Lock, which is kind of cool. That's going to be the early morning edition. That's going to be Greg and Josh taking you guys all the way up to the lock. I know there's 6 games on the FanDuel slate. That's the one I'm going to be kind of looking at over on DK. It's like 3-4-3. I don't know even what's going on with that. I know it's 5 games for the late night over there, but right now at PrizePicks, if you sign up, you will get 1 free month of Awesemo Plus Platinum. Use the deposit match bonus too to get $100 when you sign up and make your first deposit. So up to $100 you're getting back instantly. This is a really cool, fun site to be playing on. Super clean, super easy to navigate online or in the App Store. So head to the App Store, Google Play, download it wherever you want, wherever you can get your apps, and you're set to go. No sharks, no optimizers, none of that stuff. It's flat out prop-based games. You get that $100 first match deposit bonus. You can net up to 10x your entry fees. So you play 2, 3, 4, or 5 combination parlays. You put those together, you can net up to 10x your entry fee. And what I find is really fun is a guy like Adam over there who dominates every single DFS sport, every single sport under the sun. Well, he can combine props from different sports as well. NBA, NFL, you can play PGA. They'll have like women's European basketball. They'll have CSGO for a bunch of props. I'm telling you, the easiest way to get all of that knowledge that you have and play in multiple sports, the best place to go utilize that knowledge is at PrizePicks. Plus, we have a free player props tool for the NBA that helps you make some decisions in that regard as well. So check out PrizePicks, use promo code Awesemo, get that free month of Awesemo Plus Platinum, and deposit match up to $100. Thank you so much. They've sponsored this show the entire season, back when it was you and Josh. Now it's you and me. We appreciate them, and I hope that you guys definitely check them out. It is just a fun place to go. So definitely go sign up. Let's keep it on moving here. We've got some exposures to go through from players. We're going to focus more on Awesemo. We've got Neil, Rinpack, and of course the winner that we can kind of rehash here, but they have a single dart. Must be nice. Awesemo, Alex Baker himself, Joe Mixon, a little bit below the field on that. Looks like maybe you just put a cap there, 66%, 2/3 of your lineups, just going to Joe Mixon. Makes some sense there. Just kind of 1/3 of lineups get a little bit different. Devin Singletary, Another guy that's just seen a gigantic amount of workload and has been the clear-cut number one there for weeks now, a little bit over the field there. And then Stephon Diggs. He's kind of the bust, and it's so counterintuitive because so many people stacked up Josh Allen with Stephon Diggs. That's your clear-cut wide receiver one. But in tournaments, if you wanted to get different on this slate, if you could somehow avoid Mixon and you could avoid Josh Allen stacking him up with Stephon Diggs, you were absolutely golden in tournaments. What do you think about the top end of his exposures there?
Yeah, I think they're interesting because you can kind of see it, and as you like work your way down, you see it a little bit more. But he basically took a huge stand on the Patriots, and like he was overweight on the Bills, took a huge stand on the Patriots, and so basically, just had a ton of exposure overall to that game. If that game is competitive and goes off, and is higher scoring than the Cincy game, you're going to look really good. And that kind of goes back to what like the example that I used with the Seahawks versus the Cardinals the other day. You didn't necessarily have to go to Mac Jones, but you could just get pretty low owned Patriots here on a slate where, they're still relatively likely to do well. So that stands out. He's over the field on Singletary. He's over on Diggs. We know that he's almost double the field on Josh Allen. But then, tons of Damian Harris, tons of Jacoby Myers, which shouldn't surprise anybody at this point. A lot of Cole Beasley. So I think, you can kind of see that he played a lot of the Bills, but then from like a leverage standpoint, I guess he was most like overexposed to the Patriots.
Yeah. Yeah. Alex Baker, he's married, but he is married to the game. And that game is rostering Jacoby Myers. There's no doubt about it. 12.8% ownership there. Wide receiver one, getting him at a low number like that. I would say if you just took the fantasy points and scrapped them from the record, or you just scrapped everything here, I would say Jacoby Myers is somebody that I would instantly be like, I would want to be over 12.8%. Don't you think? Like that would be a great play, I think.
Yeah. I mean, I've played a lot of him all year. I know Alex has. Definitely a spot where I would want to get there on that slate.
Yeah, definitely. So if you want to take something away from something that didn't even work out that well, 10 fantasy points by Jacoby Myers, 4,500 though for a wide receiver one, and you're getting them in a negative, like an extreme negative game script there. Yeah, that I really like that play, regardless of the fact that it didn't really pan out. But yeah, Josh Allen, 41.3%. Boss man, there's a reason he's good at this, and that would be right there. Just finding a way to get over on that best quarterback on the slate. Well done there. But, didn't really have all of the other pieces. Kendrick Bourne was a must-have. 9.3% there. Looked like a pretty decent number. I want to see, did he end up, what was his profit? So he lost a little bit on this slate, but it's just really coming down to if you had Mixon or if you had Stephon Diggs in bulk like that, it just was going to be very, very tough sledding from there. It's just two very popular pieces. And if you're over on them, fit the Stephon Diggs piece for sure. It just became a difficult spot to recover because of Jamar Chase and Tyler Boyd and those guys who went for massive ceilings. And that's kind of what you're giving up in some of your lineups, not all of them. But anything else that you notice here from Boss Man?
No, I think the Patriots was what really stood out to me.
Yeah. Neil Orfield, Darren Waller, 79.3% on a slate where tight end went completely nuts. Darren Waller was the one who went the least nuts, which is just ironic and ridiculous. But yes, 51.3%. You had talked about him a little bit earlier. And then the dud of all duds for the Saturday slate, as we review this, was T. Higgins. And he was the wide receiver that I was the highest on for the entire slate. I would say Neil at 78.7%. I would say he was pretty high on him too. So highest owned there. I don't even really know what to say because, Cincinnati's playing next week. I'm going to roster probably a ton of T. Higgins again. Is there any kind of a way you look at a team that has this condensed volume here? Do you see any kind of a mistake with T. Higgins, or it's just he didn't play well?
Yeah, I mean, I don't really think so. The only thing I guess I could point to is that we had Higgins projected for 50% ownership. We had Boyd at 35, Chase at 42. So I mean, you could always make the case to like just play Boyd and Chase more just because they're lower owned. But I think Higgins was just very clearly a good play that didn't work out.
Yeah. And then you're getting down to like Ramondre Stevenson, where 38% of Ramondre as opposed to 17.3% of the field looks like Awesemo. Alex, yourself, regardless of how we look at your exposures, everybody underneath on Ramondre Stevenson outside of Neil, who took a very overweight approach. And, he ended up getting 10 fantasy points. I would say Brandon Bolden was somebody I expected more out of as well. Hey, we don't have to think about New England again. That's a plus, but I don't completely hate just taking an overweight approach on some of those guys. I think Neil does a really good job of using the tools and finding points of leverage, understanding that the field is going to be lower on a guy, and not saying that it's going to work out every single time, because that's just like an asinine thought to have, but he does do a really good job of finding these one or two massive points of leverage, and he really takes them. And for him on this slate, Ramondre Stevenson, I think, was just kind of that guy. And I don't really know what to mine out of that either. Just a spot where they were the lowest total on the board. We had already talked about trying to find some exposure to some New England pieces because they were all going to be low owned. Damian Harris is the guy that the boss man took an overweight approach to. But is there anything that you thought about specifically about the New England trio going into Saturday?
I think the thing that stands out to me the most, and looking at Neil's Stevenson exposure, Stevenson was only projected for 4% ownership. So, like, if you had told me that he was 17%, I would be like, that's kind of a weird spot for Neil to be taking like a stand. But if you thought coming in that he was 4%, that's just the type of spot where there's enough volatility there. Damian Harris obviously being active isn't good for Stevenson, but there's just enough volatility where Stevenson ends up being the better of the two guys that if he was actually 4%, I could see wanting to get a lot of him. So I think that explains that stand for him too.
Oh, I think that's sharp. That's why we have you on this show, right?
Yeah,
notice exactly. Stuff like that as I'm just talking. Cool. Raiders, Bengals defense. Again, it's a 2-game slate. You just kind of rapid fire scattershot those defenses all over the place. And, obviously you had the lower owned ones in the Patriots, and doesn't look like anybody wanted to roster a ton of the Patriots. Alex actually 22.7%. That's fascinating. It's kind of the way that we looked at Pittsburgh yesterday, obviously scoop and score by Watt there at the end. That was kind of a slate changer in some regards, even though the winning lineup didn't even have any of the defenses that performed well on the 3-gamer, but such is life. Welcome to the NFL on a 2 or 3 game slate. Renpack, Josh Allen, 60.7%. He's pretty sharp. Zay Jones, his second highest owned player at 58%. Zay Jones was somebody who had a large target share, just had been on the field a large amount of the time, 90+% of snaps in however many games in a row. It seemed like Deshaun Jackson, Bryan Edwards, definitely distant seconds, or thirds and fourths, I guess, on the wide receiver chart behind Renfro and Zay Jones there. But that's just a massive overweight approach on a guy that was already pretty popular, 33.6%. Piece of value. You needed to find somebody. That's kind of where he took his stand for sure. Zay Jones, 17.1, definitely worked out. So Ryan had the first two pieces of the equation 100% correctly. Then it's the Mixon, Diggs, landmines, and there's nothing you can do a whole lot about that. Raiders defense, 48% going up against the most popular quarterback. I find that very, very fascinating as well, considering they were 11.6%. Let's talk defense, because they are a roster spot. How do you kind of look at it on a 2 and a 3 game slate where you could just have random fluky things happen? Are you inclined to be somebody to take a massive overweight approach on the lowest owned defense on the board in certain spots like this and saying, you know what, gives me a different roster construction? I don't even care if they're going up against my quarterback in a lineup.
Yeah, like I don't think it's a must, but I know I know yesterday, I think the Cowboys were my highest owned defense, but the Eagles were right behind them at like 28%. And so it was kind of like, I didn't like the spot for Philly, obviously, but there's just so much volatility in defenses that I think that is one just kind of easy way to be contrarian in tournaments is, especially if, for example, yesterday, I had Evans, I had Gronk, but I didn't really have much Tom Brady. I had a lot of Vaughn, but I didn't have a lot of Tampa Bay, like outside of that. So I'm underweight on an offense basically. And then people also aren't playing that defense. That's just kind of one way to set yourself up, to be contrarian, and you just, hope you get a pick six or something. But then also, like you said, I think on these shorter slates, relaxing the rules that you use is another way that you can kind of be a little bit more contrarian, because you should worry, I think, a little bit less at least about avoiding negative correlation, since there's only so many options. Like you can still very easily have a good lineup that has a pass catcher or two against your defense, but enough people probably aren't going to want to do that it's different as well. So I think that's one pretty good approach.
All right, and then looking at yours, or we won't look at yours. We're going to just finish up with Rinpack. We'll do the Hall of Fame. We'll get ourselves out of here again. NBA Live Before Lock coming to you in less than 15 minutes. So be on the lookout for that. They'll have you covered too, B Kang. Absolutely check that out here. But yeah, we're still, you're going to have plenty of time. They're going to have all the time in the world to help you get everything, all the information that you need here for those slates. Cause Adam and I are going to be playing those too. We're not going anywhere. We are by our computers all day to celebrate this MLK Day. It's such a fun day of NBA. So don't go anywhere. We're going to have you covered. So the last thing really to look at from Rinpack was some of the guys that he was much lower on. Jamar Chase, less than half the field. Anytime you see the bright red category, you know that they're taking a very strong stance below. And anytime you see a bright green on Fantasy Cruncher, on Lineup Rewind, they are taking a massive overweight stance. Jamar Chase, looks like everybody was lower here out of Awesemo on him. And again, 51%, when you've got two other wide receivers in Tyler Boyd and T. Higgins. Obviously, if T. Higgins is the guy who gets peppered, you're probably looking at a 50% bust from Jamar Chase. What do you do with Jamar Chase next week again, where you know it's going to be a two-gamer? He's going to be 50%. He's got massive upside, but it's not about the upside. It's about hoping that he fails in some of these spots. And he's going to fail eventually. I just have that feeling. And I want to be shorting him again on this slate. Should I be looking at doing that, considering what we're seeing 50+%, even though there's a lot of places to go with that football in Cincinnati?
Yeah, I mean, I think he deserves it though. Like, he's so good, and he gets
freak.
Yeah, and he gets so many targets. So it's still, I mean, as usual, it comes down to what the other options are on the slate. It comes down to his ownership versus the alternatives. But I'm definitely not going in hoping that I don't play a lot of Jamar Chase.
All right. Jordan Klein, I'm getting the head nod. We're not going to do Hall of Fame. Hall of Fame bad. No Hall of Fame. He's wearing his Cleveland Guardians hat. I can't take you seriously. No Hall of Fame. Okay. We'll have plenty of time for Hall of Fame here later in the days. 7 minutes to go here in this show. Anything else that you're noticing here from your lineups? Obviously, I don't even want to talk about yours, considering you had some stuff that got jumbled up and isn't true to what you kind of thought on the slate. But anything else that you're really taking away from this Saturday Millie Maker?
No, not really. I mean, it's a 2-game slate. Like, weird things are going to happen.
Embrace variance. Is that kind of a way to sign off of this? Yeah, just embrace variance. Definitely give yourself as many opportunities as you can to either be overweight to chalk you really like, be underweight to the chalk you don't. And again, Jamar Chase, he's a freak. He's an absolute freak. I love watching him play football. I just really like T. Higgins too. And it's just so crazy to me that is something that he screwed me over that badly, but such is life. 7 minutes left to go here. We could probably get out of here a little bit early too, as well. I don't have any problem with that, but the top 150 guy, Mr. CPU Guru. I want to take a look at his lineups here too, considering he was the only 150 guy to finish in that top 5 here amongst a lot of single entries. I was just curious if his exposures matched up with some of the winning lineups here. Doesn't really look like it. I mean, he was 60% Mixon, 60% Singletary. Waller was high on there. Looks like it was just kind of one lineup, 40% Josh Allen. I think that was a strong approach. Look how many caps this guy puts on his lineups. I mean, he basically said, I am getting 60% of Mixon and Singletary. I am getting 50% of Jacobs, Higgins, and Burrow. These are the things you kind of notice as you do this more. 40% he put on the caps for those. That's probably not something I'm going to do a whole heck of a lot. What do you think kind of the theory is behind that? Just kind of saying, I'm happy getting to this amount and move on with my day.
Yeah, like I don't want it to sound the way it's going to sound. I think it's because I don't necessarily think it's bad or anything. Okay. I think it's probably just someone that hasn't figured out a better way to do it. Okay. It is like, and again, like I don't mean that to sound as like condescending as I'm sure it did.
Yeah, he won over $500,000. I think he'll wipe his tears with hundreds. He'll be fucking fine.
Yeah, he'll be fine. But no, I mean, it just like to me, it looks like somebody that like they know what they are trying to do, and they probably just haven't found like a better way of doing it other than just like really hard flat caps.
Yep.
Which is fine. It obviously worked.
It worked. I was gonna say, sometimes Monday armchair quarterback. It's just an interesting place to be.
Like it goes back. Like people ask a lot about like the last like me and Josh, like what settings we use in Fantasy Cruncher, and the answer is normally play around with it, figure out what works, because at the end of the day, what you're trying to do is just get a set of lineups that look like the lineups that you would build by hand if you were building by hand. And so, I mean, I have no idea what the rest of this guy's process is, but I would assume that he figured out that if he just does this, it does what he wants it to do, which is really all that you're trying to do.
Yeah. Girl Pal 2015 won the Millie on Sunday. This is the Saturday Millie that we're looking at here. Because again, the data isn't there for the Sunday one. We're doing the best that we can. Again, it's a holiday. So I do not blame them for not necessarily putting on the top of their priority list that we need to populate our lineup review data. Like, I don't think that that's something that I'm going to freak out too much about, but that's why we covered a lot more of this Saturday slate. We obviously touched the Sunday slate at the beginning of this show, so go back and check that. I thought there were some good tidbits there from Adam talking about some of the running backs that went nuts in that spot, some of the wide receivers here. We've got 4 minutes left. I'm just going to ask you this. Who's the guy that you're going to roster tonight that is not named Cooper Kupp?
Probably not going to play tonight.
Oh, just all NBA.
Yeah. I haven't been playing Showdown recently.
That's a smart decision. But hey, if you do want to check out some Showdown stuff, check out the programming we have coming up later in the day. It is bonkers. So obviously NBA is coming up for everybody that was wondering to be king. You're welcome. You're ready to go. Starting 8:30 p.m. Eastern. Like 8:30 a.m. Pacific time. I don't know what time it is. I'm exhausted. 11:30 p.m. Eastern time. A.m. Eastern time. What the hell? I'm going to start over. Don't look at me. Don't look at me while I'm doing this because I'm just, Jordan, relax. Jordan, don't give me that look. God, you're so annoying. I'm just going to read it off the page. 11:30 a.m. Eastern time. There we go. I got it. NBA. That's going to be the live before lock coming up here for this morning's slate of games here. Awesemo betting show coming up at 1 p.m. Eastern time. We've got 3 p.m. Eastern time. The NFL Yahoo show. We've got 4:30 p.m. Eastern time. The deeper dive in live before lock. That's Eitan and Lamarca getting it kicked off. Deeper dive. Waffy, Adam, the dynamic duo. 5 p.m. Eastern time. Check it out. 6 o'clock. NBA live before lock. That's going to be Josh and Greg coming back. So they're doing the morning. They're doing the evening. That's going to be really fun. Check out both of those. And then NFL live before lock, Ben and Matt Gajewski. It's the college duo. That's going to be really fun to watch at 7:05 p.m. Eastern time. So check out all the programming. We've got you covered for everything you need, NBA, NFL, and such. So any other final thoughts here as we talk about the weekend that you and I are very happy to be forgetting?
No, I think that covers it.
That kind of covers it, Jordan Klein. We should get ourselves out of here. We're going to leave 2 minutes early because, again, there's not really a whole lot else to say. Glad you're feeling better, my dude. I am feeling so much better. So I'm going to feel even better when I bink NBA because, that's going to happen because Adam's not playing on FanDuel. Yay for me. Guys, thanks so much to PrizePicks for sponsorship of this show. Thank you so much to Lineup Rewind, Fantasy Cruncher. Thank you, Fantasy Cruncher. You got to always remember to do that. He's Adam Scherer. He's now a golf expert. I'm Eric. I can't even make a putt anymore. We'll see you guys later.